The October morning came soft through the lace curtains of the Victorian house on East Gaston Street, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. Maggie Hayes woke at 6:47 a.m., 3 minutes before her alarm, same as she had every morning for the past 43 years. Some habits, she thought, not even widowhood could break. She reached across the bed, her hand finding the cool, empty space where Bill used to sleep. 3 years gone, and her body still expected him to be there. The grief counselor at First Baptist Church had told her it would get easier. The grief counselor, Maggie decided, was a damn liar. The morning routine was automatic. Slippers, robe, bathroom, then to the vanity where she'd sat every day since 1982. The mirror showed her what she already knew. 65 looked different than she'd imagined back when she was young and stupid and thought 65 was ancient. Her hair had gone fully silver last year, which Bill would have loved. "Gonna look like a queen," he'd always said. "My silver-haired queen." Her hand moved to the jewelry box without thinking, the navy blue velvet one Bill had presented on their 25th anniversary, his calloused construction worker hands shaking as he opened it. Inside had been the eternal knot necklace, white gold woven in an intricate Celtic pattern that had no beginning and no end. "Just like their love," he'd said. "Forever." Maggie's fingers found the box's clasp. It was already open. The lid flipped back too easily, and her heart, her stupid, trusting heart, already knew before her eyes confirmed it. The cream satin interior lay bare, empty. The slight depression where the necklace had rested for 40 years looked obscene in its nakedness. She didn't scream, didn't cry, just sat there, the box in her lap, staring at nothing. The necklace was gone. Her mind spun back unbidden to 1985. Bill working double shifts at the Boeing plant, coming home at midnight smelling like metal shavings and exhaustion, collapsing into bed only to wake up at 5 for his construction job. 14 months he'd done that. 14 months of barely seeing him, of eating dinner alone, of sleeping beside a man too tired to dream. "Why?" she'd asked him once, frustrated and lonely. "Because," he'd said, pulling her close, "I'm going to get you something that lasts. Something that says what I can't say, right." And he had. The eternal knot. $4,700 in 1985 money, a fortune for a working-class black couple in Savannah. He'd presented it at their anniversary party, in front of everyone, and she'd cried so hard her mascara ran. Now it was gone. Maggie's hands trembled as she checked the drawer beneath the box, then the other drawers, even though she knew exactly where she'd put it last night. Right there, in the navy velvet box. Same place she'd put it every night for 40 years. The bedroom door was still locked from the inside, the way she always kept it. The window was closed, undisturbed. No signs of forced entry, which meant her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Instagram notification. Maggie rarely used Instagram. Thomas had set it up for her last Christmas so she could see photos of his kids, Sophia and Ethan. She mostly just scrolled through, liking pictures of grandchildren and former piano students, never posting anything herself. But this notification wasn't from Thomas. At Jessica Living My Best Life posted a new photo, Maggie's finger hesitated over the screen. Jessica, her baby girl, her youngest, the one who used to crawl into bed during thunderstorms, who'd made Maggie friendship bracelets every summer, who'd cried at Bill's funeral so hard she'd thrown up. The photo loaded. Azure water. White sand. Jessica in a turquoise bikini, Brandon behind her with his arms around her waist, both of them holding champagne flutes against a sunset so perfect it looked photoshopped. The caption read, "Finally living our best life. Sometimes you gotta sell the past to buy the future hashtag, blessed hashtag, Maui dreaming hashtag, no regrets." Maggie zoomed in with shaking fingers. There on the teak table beside the infinity pool, partially visible in the bottom right corner of the photo, a receipt. She could just make out the letterhead. Peterson's Fine Jewelry, and the amount, $47,000. The phone slipped from her hand onto the duvet. Maggie stood up slowly, walked to the window, and looked out at the street Bill had loved. The oak trees dripping with Spanish moss, the morning joggers and dog walkers starting their day. Normal. Everything looked so goddamn normal. But nothing was normal. Her daughter, her baby, had stolen the necklace, had pawned 40 years of love and sacrifice for a week in Hawaii. Maggie pressed her palm against the cool glass and finally let herself feel it. Not rage, Not yet. Just a hollowness so vast it felt like she might collapse into it and disappear. "Bill," she whispered to the empty room, to the ghost she still talked to every morning. "What do I do?" The phone rang before she could spiral further. Unknown number. Local area code. "Mrs. Hayes?" The voice was elderly, familiar, warm as Sunday morning. "This is Harold Peterson, from the jewelry shop?" Maggie's breath caught. "Harold?" "Ma'am, I need you to come down to the shop, right now, if you can." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "It's about Bill, and Jessica, and something your husband set up a long time ago." "What? Please, Maggie, just come. I can't explain over the phone, but you need to see this." The line went dead. Maggie stood in her bathrobe, phone in hand, staring at her reflection in the window. Behind her, the navy velvet box sat open and empty on the vanity. And somewhere in Maui, her daughter was sipping champagne bought with Maggie's past. Peterson's fine jewelry sat on Broughton Street, sandwiched between a coffee shop and an antique bookstore, the same spot it had occupied since 1967. Harold Peterson had taken over from his father in '82, and Bill Hayes had been one of his first customers, a young construction worker saving up for an engagement ring. Maggie parked her old Camry in the loading zone, not caring if she got a ticket. She'd thrown on jeans and a sweater, not bothering with makeup. What was the point? The bell above the door chimed as she entered. The shop smelled the same as it always had: jewelry cleaner and old wood, and the faint vanilla of the candles Harold's late wife used to love. The display cases gleamed under soft lighting, filled with diamonds and gold that meant nothing to Maggie right now. Harold emerged from the back, and Maggie's heart clenched. He'd aged. They all had. His hair was pure white now, his dark skin creased with 70 years of living, but his eyes, sharp and kind, were the same. "Maggie." He came around the counter and pulled her into a brief hug. "I'm so sorry." "Where is it?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "The necklace. Jessica brought it here, didn't she?" Harold nodded slowly. "This morning, around 9. Said she needed quick cash, was in a hurry." He walked to the safe behind the counter, keyed in the combination. "She didn't know that Bill and I had an arrangement." "An arrangement?" Harold lifted out a familiar shape wrapped in soft cloth. When he unwrapped it, the eternal knot gleamed under the lights, every loop and curve exactly as Maggie remembered. Her hand shot out, stopping just short of touching it. "How?" "Your husband came to see me 3 years ago." Harold's voice was gentle. "Right after he got his diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer, wasn't it?" Maggie nodded, unable to speak. "He sat right where you're standing and told me he was worried. Not about dying. Bill made his peace with that quick enough. He was worried about you, about what might happen after." "I don't understand." Harold reached under the counter and pulled out a manila folder, worn at the edges. "He paid me $50,000, Maggie. Paid it in cash over 6 months from his life insurance policy. Made me promise that if anyone other than you tried to sell this necklace, I was to buy it. No questions asked. And then I was to call you." Maggie's legs felt weak. She gripped the counter. He knew? He knew Jessica would... He didn't want to believe it. Harold opened the folder, revealing a contract, notarized and official. But he'd overheard something. A phone call between Jessica and Brandon talking about money troubles, about waiting for the inheritance. "Bill never told me the details, but he said he needed to protect you. Just in case. Just in case. God, Bill. Even dying, he'd been trying to take care of her. There's more." Harold picked up the necklace with careful fingers. "He showed me something the day he brought this in to have it cleaned and appraised. Said to show you if this day ever came." He rotated the pendant, his thumbnail finding a nearly invisible seam in the metalwork. 3 clicks to the right, and the back of the pendant popped open like a locket. Inside wasn't a photo. It was a tiny piece of paper, folded so small it was barely there. Harold extracted it with tweezers and unfolded it under the magnifying lamp. Bill's handwriting, cramped and shaky. He'd written this while already sick. Psalm 127:3. "Check the Steinway, I love you, Maggie. I always knew." Maggie's vision blurred. She pressed her knuckles against her mouth to keep from sobbing. "What does it mean?" Harold asked quietly. "Psalm 127:3. Maggie's voice cracked. "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "Bill always said that. even when the kids drove him crazy. And the Steinway? Our piano. My parents gave it to us as a wedding gift. Maggie took the paper with shaking hands. There's something hidden in it. Bill hid something for me. Harold carefully returned the necklace to its cloth. This is yours, Maggie. It always was. Jessica got $47,000 for it. I paid market rate to keep her from getting suspicious. But the necklace comes back to you. That was the deal. Harold, I can't let you lose that much money. Bill already paid me. He pushed the wrapped necklace across the counter. The $50,000 covered the buyback and my trouble. He thought of everything. Maggie picked up the bundle, feeling its familiar weight. Did Jessica say anything? When she was here? Harold's jaw tightened. She said, and I quote, "My mom's getting old anyway. She doesn't need fancy jewelry sitting in a house by herself." Then she laughed, said something about how you wouldn't even notice it was gone for weeks. The words hit like a slap. Maggie closed her eyes, breathing through the pain. There's one more thing. Harold's voice dropped. Brandon was with her. He seemed nervous, kept checking his phone, watching the door. Jessica was the one doing all the talking, all the negotiating. He just stood there, sweating. I got the feeling he didn't want to be here. But he was. Yeah, he was. Maggie tucked the necklace and the folder under her arm. Thank you, Harold, for everything. For being Bill's friend. Still am, he said. Yours too. You need anything? And I mean anything. You call me, day or night. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and walked out into the Savannah sunshine that suddenly felt too bright, too cheerful, too wrong. In her car, she unwrapped the necklace and held it up to the light. The eternal knot swayed gently, catching the sun, each loop perfect and unbroken. I love you, Maggie. I always knew. I miss you, she whispered. God, Bill, I miss you so much. Then she started the car and drove home to find out what her dead husband had hidden in the piano. Maggie made it halfway up her front steps before her phone rang. Jessica. Of course it was Jessica. She stood there, key in hand, staring at her daughter's name on the screen. Part of her wanted to let it go to voicemail. The other part, the mother part that had kissed scraped knees and stayed up all night with fevers, couldn't help but answer. Hey, sweetheart. Maggie kept her voice neutral. Mom! Oh my God, I'm so glad I caught you. Jessica's voice was bright, breezy, with that fake enthusiasm she used when she wanted something. Guess where we are? Hawaii. Maggie unlocked the door and stepped into the cool dimness of her foyer. You saw my post. Isn't it gorgeous? Brandon surprised me for our anniversary. He's been working so hard, we really needed this. Maggie walked through the living room, past the piano she'd get to later, into the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of water with a hand that only shook a little. That's nice, honey. We're at this amazing resort, the Maui Grand Wailea. Mom, they have a lazy river. And the food. Jessica laughed, that tinkling sound that used to be genuine when she was little. Anyway, I was calling because I wanted to check on you. How are you feeling? There it was, the setup. Maggie could hear it in the too careful tone. I'm fine, Jessica. You sure? Because, you've been seeming a little off lately. Off? Forgetful. Remember last month when you swore you'd paid the electric bill, but then you got that disconnect notice, and you kept insisting someone had stolen your mail? Maggie set the glass down carefully. The bill was misplaced. I found it later. Right, misplaced. A pause. And what about when you called me at 2 a.m. saying someone was in the backyard, and it was just a raccoon? There was a noise. There's always a noise, Mom. Jessica's voice shifted, taking on that patronizing edge that made Maggie's teeth clench. I'm worried about you. Living alone in that big house at your age. Brandon and I have been talking, and we think maybe it's time to consider some options. Options? Like assisted living. There's a beautiful facility over in Pooler. They have bingo on Tuesdays and everything. You'd love it. And you wouldn't have to worry about maintaining the house or bills or any of that stressful stuff. Maggie's free hand curled into a fist. I'm 65, Jessica, not 90, and I'm not forgetful. Mom, denial is totally normal. I'm not in denial. The words came out sharper than intended. Maggie took a breath. Jessica, I know what you're doing. What am I doing? Innocent. So innocent it was insulting. The necklace. Dad's necklace. It's gone. Silence. Then, what necklace? The eternal knot. The one he gave me for our 25th anniversary. It was in my jewelry box yesterday, and now it's gone. Mom! Jessica's voice dripped with concern. Are you sure? Did you check everywhere? Maybe you moved it and forgot. I didn't forget. Someone took it. Who would take it? You live alone? Unless... Jessica gasped, theatrical as a soap opera. Oh my God, Mom, have you been letting strangers into the house? The mailman? The lawn service guy? You have to be more careful. I didn't let anyone. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Jessica's voice rose. You're not safe there by yourself. What if someone really did break in? What if next time it's not just a necklace? Brandon's voice in the background. Everything okay, babe? It's Mom, Jessica said, not bothering to cover the phone. She thinks someone stole her necklace. I told you she's been getting worse. I can hear you, Maggie said quietly. Mom, listen. Jessica was back, all fake sweetness. I'm going to call Dr. Mitchell when we get back, okay? She's a psychiatrist. Well, psychologist, whatever. And she specializes in seniors with memory issues. She can help you. I don't need help. I need my necklace back. Okay, Mom, sure. We'll look for it when we get home. The placating tone people used with children and the senile. In the meantime, just try to relax, okay? Don't stress yourself out. It's probably just misplaced. Jessica. Love you. Gotta go. Our massage appointment is in 10 minutes. Bye. The line went dead. Maggie stood in her kitchen, phone still pressed to her ear, listening to the dial tone. Don't stress yourself out. Memory issues. Forgetful. Getting worse. The words circled in her head like vultures. This was strategic. This wasn't panic or confusion. Jessica had a plan. She'd stolen the necklace, and now she was building a narrative, making Maggie seem incompetent, unstable. Why? Maggie's gaze drifted to the living room, to the Steinway piano that dominated the space like a sleeping giant. Bill had refinished it himself, stripping decades of varnish down to the original wood, bringing it back to life with his hands. Check the Steinway. She walked into the living room, afternoon light slanting through the windows. The piano sat against the far wall, its lid closed, music books still stacked neatly on top. Maggie hadn't played much since Bill died, couldn't bear to. She lifted the lid, revealing the keys, yellowed ivory, some chipped, all familiar as her own fingers. She'd taught piano on this instrument for 30 years, hundreds of students, thousands of hours, the music books. She started there, pulling them off one by one. Bach, Chopin, Debussy, a church hymnal, sheet music from her old students. There, tucked between Clair de Lune and Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, a newer folder. She pulled it out. Inside wasn't sheet music. It was a single page, laminated with Psalm 127:3 printed at the top. Below that, the verse in Bill's handwriting. Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Below the verse, an arrow pointing down to a small brass key taped to the page. Maggie's hands trembled as she peeled back the tape and freed the key. It was old, ornate, with a tag attached. First National Bank Safety Deposit Box 714A, sound escaped her throat, half laugh, half sob. Bill, her brilliant, paranoid, loving Bill. He'd known. Somehow he'd known this would happen. And he'd left her a trail of breadcrumbs, leading her to... What? The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 4 times. Maggie clutched the key in her fist and made a decision. Tomorrow morning, first thing, she'd go to the bank. Tonight, she'd do what Bill had always told her to do when things got hard. Pray, sleep, and come back fighting. She tucked the key into her pocket, closed the piano, and headed upstairs. Behind her, in the growing shadows, the piano stood silent, keeping Bill's secrets a little while longer. Maggie didn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan making its slow rotations, the key on her nightstand catching streetlight every time the blades turned. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. Sometimes you gotta sell the past to buy the future. Jessica's words. Jessica's laughing, careless words. At 2:17 a.m., Maggie gave up. She went downstairs, made chamomile tea she didn't drink, and sat at the kitchen table with Bill's letter from the necklace spread in front of her. I love you, Maggie. I always knew. Always knew what? That Jessica would betray her? That their daughter, the baby who used to sing made-up songs about butterflies, who'd cried when her goldfish died, Would steal from her own mother? No, that wasn't the daughter Maggie raised. Or was it? Maggie thought back over the past few years. The distance that had grown between Jessica and the rest of the family. The way she'd stopped coming to Sunday dinners always had an excuse. The tension between her and Thomas, her older brother, that had started around, when? 5 years ago? 6? And the money troubles. Maggie had seen the signs, even if she'd been ignoring them. Jessica's real estate career that never quite took off. Brandon getting let go from the insurance company, though they'd called it downsizing. The way they'd downgraded from their townhouse to a smaller rental. The credit card bills Maggie had seen once, accidentally, when she'd been watching their dog. $47,000 in debt. $47,000. The same amount they'd gotten for the necklace. Oh, Jessica. Maggie pressed her palms against her eyes. Part of her wanted to cry. The bigger part, the part that had survived Jim Crow Georgia, that had put herself through college while working 2 jobs, that had buried her husband and kept going. That part was getting angry. The kind of angry that didn't scream. The kind that planned. At 6:30 a.m., Maggie showered, dressed in her navy pantsuit, the one she wore to piano recitals and parent-teacher conferences, her armor, and drove to First National Bank the moment they opened at 9. The bank was housed in a building that had been there since 1923. All marble floors and vaulted ceilings, the kind of place that took itself seriously. Maggie approached a customer service representative, a young woman whose name tag read Ashley. I need to access a safety deposit box. Maggie placed the key on the counter. Ashley examined it. Box 714. Do you have your ID? Maggie handed over her driver's license. Ashley typed something into her computer, frowned slightly. The box is registered to William Hayes and Margaret Hayes. I'll need to verify. Oh. Her expression softened. I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Hayes. I have a note here that Mr. Hayes updated the access permissions 3 years ago. You're listed as sole authorized user. Of course he did. Bill thought of everything. Ashley led her into the vault, a temperature-controlled room lined with boxes of various sizes. Box 714 was in the middle row. Ashley inserted the bank's key, then stepped back to let Maggie use hers. Take your time, Ashley said. There's a private viewing room right through there if you need it. Maggie waited until she was alone, then turned both keys. The box slid out, heavier than expected. She carried it to the viewing room, a small space with a desk and chair, and closed the door. For a moment, she just stared at it. This was Bill's last message. Whatever was inside, he'd meant for her to find it, after he was gone, after whatever he feared came true. Maggie lifted the lid. Inside, a red USB drive labeled "For Maggie's Eyes Only" in Bill's block letters, a manila folder thick with documents, a sealed letter addressed to her in Bill's handwriting, and tucked in the corner, a photo, Bill and Maggie on their wedding day, both of them impossibly young, laughing at something the photographer had said. On the back, Bill had written, "Remember who we were. Remember who we are." Maggie's hands shook as she picked up the letter. The seal broke easily. My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, then my worst fears came true. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so damn sorry. You always saw the best in people, especially our kids. It's one of the things I loved most about you. But sometimes I saw things you didn't want to see. I heard things. And I couldn't die without making sure you were protected. 3 months before I got sick, I overheard Jessica and Brandon on the phone. I was in the garage, and Jessica was in the backyard. She didn't know I could hear. They were talking about money, about how much the house would sell for, about putting you in the cheapest place we can find. I wanted to confront her. God knows I wanted to. But you loved her so much, and I didn't want to break your heart while I was still here to see it. So I made a plan. Inside this box you'll find 1. A USB drive with security camera footage. I installed cameras in the house 2 years ago. Small ones, hidden. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I recorded every conversation Jessica and Brandon had when they visited. All of it. You'll want to watch it, but baby, it's gonna hurt. Take your time. 2. Documents for a trust I set up. The house, our savings, everything. It's in an irrevocable living trust with you as the sole beneficiary. Jessica can't touch it. Can't force you to sell. Can't contest my will. I made damn sure. 3. Evidence. Bank records. Emails. Everything you'll need if, when, things get ugly. Maggie, I know you. I know you're sitting there thinking you should have seen this coming, that you failed as a mother. You didn't. Sometimes people choose who they're going to be and we can't stop them, but we can protect ourselves. Call Rebecca Foster. Her number's in the folder. She's the best family law attorney in Savannah, and I've already paid her a retainer. She knows everything. And Maggie, don't let them make you doubt yourself. You're not forgetful. You're not incompetent. You're the smartest, strongest woman I ever met. I love you. I loved you on our wedding day. I loved you through 43 years of life, and I'm loving you right now from whatever comes next. Go get 'em, Tiger. Yours forever. Bill. Maggie read it twice, then 3 times. Then she carefully folded it, tucked it back in the envelope, and sat in the small room, breathing. Bill had known, he'd known, and he'd protected her anyway. She picked up the USB drive, turning it over in her fingers. 47 hours of footage, the label said. 47 hours of her daughter plotting against her. Maggie stood, gathered everything back into the box, and called Ashley to have it returned to the vault. She'd need to come back, multiple times probably, but right now she needed air. Outside the bank, the Savannah sun was bright and hot. Tourists wandered past, taking photos of the historic buildings, eating pralines from River Street, living their uncomplicated lives. Maggie pulled out her phone and dialed. Foster and Associates, a receptionist answered. This is Margaret Hayes. I need to speak with Rebecca Foster. Please tell her. Tell her Bill's wife is calling. 1 moment. 30 seconds. That's all it took. Maggie? Rebecca's voice was warm, professional, familiar. She'd handled Bill's will. I've been expecting your call. Are you somewhere we can talk? I'm outside First National. I found the box. Good. Don't go home yet. Come to my office. We have a lot to discuss. Rebecca. Maggie's voice cracked just slightly. How bad is it? A pause. Bad enough that Bill spent 2 years preparing for it. But Maggie? He prepared well. They're not going to win this. They? Jessica filed paperwork with Adult Protective Services yesterday. She's trying to have you declared incompetent. She doesn't know about the trust yet. Doesn't know about the cameras. Doesn't know Bill was 10 steps ahead of her. Maggie looked up at the clear blue sky, and for the first time since finding the empty jewelry box, she smiled. Not a happy smile, a dangerous one. I'm on my way, she said. Rebecca Foster's law office was in a renovated townhouse on Bull Street, all exposed brick and modern glass, the kind of place that whispered expensive but worth it. Maggie had been here once before, sitting beside Bill as they signed their wills, both of them pretending they weren't thinking about death. Now she was back. Alone. Rebecca met her at the door, 50-something, silver hair cut sharp as her reputation, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Maggie's car. But her eyes were kind when she pulled Maggie into a brief, firm hug. Come on, conference room's ready. She led Maggie past tasteful abstract art and a receptionist who nodded sympathetically into a room with a massive table and wall-mounted screens. A laptop sat ready, USB ports visible. Coffee? Water? Something stronger? Rebecca asked. Water's fine. Maggie's voice sounded steadier than she felt. Rebecca poured from a crystal pitcher, then sat across from her. Okay, deep breath. Tell me where you're at. Maggie pulled out the USB drive. Bill left me this. 47 hours of footage, he said. Hidden cameras in the house. I know. He showed me the setup 2 years ago. He was thorough, Maggie. Cameras in the living room, kitchen, his office. Anywhere Jessica and Brandon might talk freely. All motion activated, cloud backed up, legally obtained since it's his house. Rebecca paused. Have you watched any of it? Not yet. Do you want me to preview it first? I can give you the highlights, spare you some of the... No, Maggie's jaw set. I need to see it, all of it. Rebecca studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, but Maggie, this is going to be rough. What you're about to see, it's going to change how you see your daughter. There's no unknowing this. She already changed. Maggie handed over the USB drive. The moment she stole that necklace and called me crazy for noticing. I need to know how long this has been coming. Rebecca inserted the drive. The screen flickered to life, showing a file directory. Dozens of video files, organized by date. The earliest was from September 2022, 2 weeks after Bill's funeral. Jesus, Maggie whispered. She didn't even wait. Rebecca clicked the first file. Video 1, September 15th, 2022. Living room camera. The footage was grainy but clear enough. The timestamp read 3:47 p.m. Maggie recognized the angle. The camera must have been hidden in the bookshelf, facing the couch. Jessica and Brandon sat where Maggie and Bill used to watch Jeopardy. Jessica wore black, still in mourning clothes. The funeral had been 5 days ago. Not saying do it tomorrow, Brandon was saying, his voice low and urgent. I'm saying we need to start planting seeds. Get her thinking about downsizing. She's not going to downsize. Jessica kicked off her heels. You know how she is, all sentimental about this place. Oh, Bill refinished these floors, Bill built that bookshelf, blah, blah, blah. In the conference room, Maggie flinched. On screen, Jessica continued. We need a different approach, something that makes her want to leave, or makes her seem like she can't stay. What are you thinking? Jessica leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Dr. Mitchell, remember her? From the country club? The shrink? Psychiatrist. She owes me a favor. I connected her with that client who bought the Hilton Head property. I bet for the right price she'd write up something about Mom's mental state. You know, forgetfulness, confusion, inability to manage finances. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. That's pretty hardcore, Jess. We're $340,000 in debt, Brandon. Your brilliant crypto investment went belly up. My real estate license is about to lapse because I can't afford the renewal fees. We're 3 months behind on rent. Her voice rose. This house is worth $900,000. Easy. That's our way out. It's not our house. It will be. Jessica's smile was cold. Mom's the only name on the deed now, and she's 65, widowed, living alone. All we need is documentation that she can't handle it. Power of attorney, put her somewhere cheap, sell the house. Done. Maggie's hand flew to her mouth. Rebecca paused the video. You okay? Keep going, Maggie choked out. Video 2, October 3rd, 2022. Kitchen camera. Jessica on her phone, pacing. Maggie recognized the date, her birthday. Jessica had brought a grocery store cake, stayed for 20 minutes, left early claiming a showing. Kevin, hey, it's Jessica Reynolds. Yeah, I know it's been a minute. Listen, I've got a listing coming up. My mother's property. Victorian 4-bed, 3-bath, East Gaston Street. I know, right? Gold mine. She laughed at something Kevin said. Here's the thing. I need the appraisal to come in high. Like $920,000 high. Can you make that happen? No, she doesn't know it's being appraised yet. But when the time comes, I need that number locked in. What's in it for you? 6% commission on $1 million sale, plus I'll kick you back $50,000 under the table from my cut. Deal? Pause. Perfect. I'll call you in a few months. Gonna take some time to get the ducks in a row. Yeah, you too. Bye. Jessica hung up, then immediately dialed another number. Dr. Mitchell? It's Jessica Reynolds. I'm great. Thanks. Listen, I need to ask you about a professional consultation. Rebecca fast-forwarded. There are 15 more calls with Dr. Mitchell over the next 6 months. Jessica paid her $15,000 via Venmo. We have the transaction records. Mitchell wrote a preliminary psychological evaluation without ever meeting you. It's all fraudulent. What does the evaluation say? Rebecca pulled up a document on her tablet, slid it across. Early-stage dementia, paranoid ideation, inability to manage complex financial decisions. She recommends immediate family oversight of your assets. Maggie read the words, feeling them like punches. This woman never met me. Nope. She wrote it based on family reports, meaning whatever lies Jessica told her. Can we use this? Oh, we're going to use the hell out of it. Rebecca's smile was shark-like. Medical fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, financial exploitation. Mitchell's going to lose her license and probably do time. But first, let's finish the videos. Video 3, March of 2023, office camera. Brandon sitting across from a man in a cheap suit. Gregory Walsh, according to the caption Rebecca had added. A lawyer, apparently. So walk me through the timeline, Walsh was saying, fingers steepled. How long does incompetency evaluation take in Georgia? For a contested case? 6 months minimum, the lawyer said. But if you have medical documentation, witness testimony, and the subject doesn't fight it, you can fast-track in 3, maybe 4 months. And cost? My fee is $10,000 up front. Court costs, expert witnesses, another $15,000. Call it $25,000 total. Brandon whistled. That's steep. That's family law. You want cheap? Represent yourself. You want it done right? You pay for it. Walsh leaned forward. Let me be clear. If you're doing this for the right reasons, to protect someone who genuinely can't care for themselves, I'm your guy. But if this is about money, it's not. Brandon's voice was too quick, too defensive. My mother-in-law is declining. We're worried about her. Uh-huh. Walsh didn't look convinced. Well, assuming everything's on the up and up, here's what you'll need. Rebecca paused it. Walsh is dirty, but he's smart enough to cover himself. Notice he's creating plausible deniability. If you're doing this for the right reasons, makes it harder to prove he knew it was a scam. Did Bill get footage of Jessica too? Oh yeah. Rebecca clicked another file. This one's from April, 2 months ago. Jessica and Brandon in your living room again, thinking you were at church. Video 4, April 14th, 2024. Living room camera. Jessica stood at the window, phone pressed to her ear. Brandon sat on the couch, head in his hands. I don't care what it costs. Mom needs to be in a facility by summer. Because the housing market's hot right now. If we wait until fall, we might miss the peak. She listened, then laughed. No, we're not telling Thomas. Are you kidding? Mr. Perfect Doctor would never go for it. He'd probably offer to pay off our debts himself just to prove what a great son he is. Brandon looked up. Jess, maybe we should tell Thomas. He might actually help. I'm not taking charity from my brother, Jessica hissed, covering the phone. We're doing this my way. She returned to the call. Yeah, Pleasant Grove Nursing Home. I toured it last week. It's not fancy, but it's cheap, like $3,000 a month. We can cover that easily once the house sells. What do you mean, how will we explain it to her? She's got dementia. We'll just tell her it's a nice retirement community. By the time she figures out what's happening, the house will be sold and we'll be debt-free. Maggie stood up abruptly, chair scraping. I need a minute. Take your time. Rebecca's voice was gentle. Bathroom's 2 doors down, or there's a balcony if you need air. Maggie chose the balcony. She stepped out into humid Savannah afternoon, gripping the railing, breathing through the nausea. Pleasant Grove. She'd driven past it once. The parking lot was cracked, the building needed paint, and she'd seen an elderly woman sitting alone by the fence, just staring. That's where Jessica wanted to put her. Not because Maggie needed care. Because it was cheap. Behind her, the door opened. Rebecca. I checked the trust documents, she said quietly. Bill set it up perfectly. Even if Jessica got power of attorney, even if a judge declared you incompetent, which won't happen, she still couldn't touch the house. It's in an irrevocable living trust. The only person who can make decisions about it is you. So all of this, all her planning, is pointless. Bill made sure of it. Rebecca handed her a bottle of water. But Maggie, there's one thing the trust can't protect you from. The harassment, the gaslighting, the APS investigation. Jessica can still make your life hell, even if she can't take your assets. So what do? We fight back, hard. Rebecca's eyes glinted. We have everything we need. Video evidence, financial records, expert testimony. We can bury her. Criminal charges, civil suit, restraining order, the works. Maggie took a long drink of water. What about Thomas? Does he know? No. Bill didn't want to involve him unless necessary. But Maggie... Rebecca hesitated. You're going to need allies. Thomas should know what his sister's doing. He's in Boston. He's got his practice, his family. He's also your son. And from what Bill told me, he's nothing like Jessica. Maggie looked out over the Savannah rooftops, the church steeples and oak trees and the river glinting in the distance. Her city, her home, the place Bill had loved. All right, she said. Call Thomas. Thomas Hayes was in the middle of a cardiac catheterization when his phone buzzed. He ignored it. You don't stop mid-procedure for a phone call. But when it buzzed 3 more times in succession, his surgical nurse gave him a look. Dr. Hayes, your phone. Is someone dying? He asked, not looking up from the monitor. It says Rebecca Foster. Urgent. Your mother. Thomas's hand stilled. Dr. Chen, can you take over? Of course. He was out of the OR in 90 seconds, still in his scrubs, calling back with fingers that suddenly wouldn't quite work. Rebecca, what's wrong? Is Mom okay? Physically, she's fine. Emotionally. Thomas, when can you get to Savannah? What happened? It's complicated. And I'd rather explain in person. How soon can you be here? Thomas was already heading for his office. I can be on a plane in 3 hours. Rebecca, you're scaring me. Is Mom sick? Hurt? She's being targeted by Jessica. Thomas stopped walking. What? Jessica's trying to have your mother declared incompetent so she can sell the house. Your father knew this might happen. He left evidence. A lot of it. Your mother needs you, Thomas. The hallway spun slightly. Jessica, his little sister, the one who used to follow him around, begging to play basketball, the one who'd sobbed at their father's funeral. I'm coming, he said. Tell Mom I'm coming. 12 hours later, Thomas's rental car pulled up to his childhood home at 11 p.m. The porch light was on. Mom always left it on, waiting up no matter how late. Some things never changed, except everything had changed. He let himself in with his old key. Mom? Kitchen, baby. She was at the table, tea grown cold in front of her, looking smaller than he remembered. When had she gotten so small? Hey, he crossed to her, pulled her into a hug. She held on tight, and he felt her shaking. I'm here. It's going to be okay. You shouldn't have left your patients. Mom, stop. He pulled back, looked at her, really looked. She had circles under her eyes, new lines around her mouth. Rebecca told me, some of it, but I want to hear it from you. So she told him, all of it. The necklace, the Instagram post, Harold's call, the cameras, the videos, Jessica's plan. Thomas listened, his doctor's face on, calm, composed, while inside rage built like a storm. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I need to see the videos, he finally said. Thomas, they're not easy to watch. I don't care. I need to see. 1:30 a.m., they sat in the living room, the same room where Jessica had plotted, watching the footage on Maggie's laptop. Thomas made it through 3 videos before he had to pause. She laughed, he said, voice hollow. She laughed about putting you in Pleasant Grove. I know. And the comment about me being Mr. Perfect. He ran his hands through his hair. Jesus. There's more, Maggie said quietly. Rebecca found something else. She pulled up a document, an email chain between Jessica and Thomas from 5 years ago. I forgot about this, Thomas said, reading. She asked me to co-sign a business loan, $200,000. I said no. Why? Because Brandon had just been fired for falsifying sales reports. Because Jessica's real estate career was already tanking. Because it felt wrong. Thomas looked at his mother. She stopped talking to me after that. Didn't answer my calls for 6 months. I thought she was just embarrassed. Pride, you know? She was angry, Maggie said. She thought you should have helped her. I offered to help. I said I'd lend them $20,000. No interest, no timeline. She said that was insulting. Said if I really cared, I'd co-sign the full amount. Thomas shook his head. I didn't realize. Mom, I think she's been planning this since then. Since I said no. That's when she decided you were her backup plan. Maggie's hand found his. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? If I just signed the damn loan, then you'd both be in debt, and she'd probably still be here, trying to take the house. Maggie squeezed his hand. You did the right thing, Thomas. You can't save people who don't want to be saved. They sat in silence, the laptop screen casting blue light across the room. What do you need from me? Thomas finally asked. Whatever it is, I'm here. Rebecca says we have enough for criminal charges. Elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy. Jessica could go to jail. Good. Thomas, Mom, she tried to steal your home. She was going to lock you in a cut-rate nursing home and sell everything Dad worked for. His voice hardened. She made her choice. She's your sister. She was my sister. The person in those videos? I don't know her. Maggie stood, walked to the window. Outside, Savannah slept, peaceful and unaware. Rebecca wants to set a trap, a dinner. Invite Jessica and Brandon. Have the evidence ready. Bring in the police. She says it'll be more effective than just filing charges, catching them in the act of trying to manipulate me. When? This Sunday, 4 days from now. Maggie turned to face him. But Thomas, if we do this, there's no going back. Jessica will hate me. She might never forgive me. Thomas joined her at the window. Do you think she'd forgive you for not going along with her plan? For refusing to be declared incompetent? For keeping your own house? Maggie didn't answer. Mom, she already made her choice. Now you get to make yours. He put his arm around her shoulders. And whatever you choose, I'm with you. Emily and the kids can stay in Boston with her parents. I'm here as long as you need me. Maggie leaned into her son, her good son, her steady son, and finally let herself cry. Not tears of fear or pain, tears of relief. She wasn't alone. Friday morning, Rebecca's office. The war room was ready. Rebecca had printed stills from the videos, organized documents into color-coded folders, prepared a timeline of Jessica's scheme. Thomas sat beside Maggie, still in yesterday's wrinkled shirt, running on coffee and fury. Okay, Rebecca said. Here's the play. Sunday dinner, 6 p.m. at Maggie's house. We invite Jessica and Brandon under the pretense that Maggie wants to discuss options for the house. They'll think they're winning. Who else is there? Thomas asked. Officer Patricia Anderson. She's with the Elder Abuse Unit. Been waiting for a case with this much evidence. David Thompson from APS. He needs to see he's been played. Dr. Mitchell. I cut her a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced charge. She deserves to rot, Thomas muttered. She will. Just in minimum security instead of maximum. Rebecca turned to Maggie. And you need to be ready. Jessica's going to try to manipulate you. She'll cry, play victim, maybe even threaten. Can you hold firm? Maggie thought of Bill, of his letter. Go get him, Tiger. I can hold firm, she said. Good, because Sunday night we're ending this. Rebecca clicked her pen, making notes. I'm also filing for a restraining order this afternoon. Once Jessica's arrested, she won't be able to contact you. And we're freezing any attempt to file power of attorney. As of today, the court is on notice. What about Brandon? Thomas asked. He's in the videos too. Oh, Brandon's going down, but I've got a feeling, Rebecca smiled thinly, that when the cuffs come out, Brandon's going to flip on Jessica faster than you can say plea deal. You think he'll testify against her? He's already nervous in the videos, kept telling Jessica it was too risky. He's the weak link. We exploit that. Maggie stood, walked to the window. Below, Savannah went about its business. People heading to work, tourists taking photos, life moving forward. I keep thinking, she said quietly, about when Jessica was little. 8, maybe 9. She failed a math test and forged my signature on it. When I found out, she cried and said she just wanted to make me proud. Mom, Thomas started. I told her I was already proud, that I'd always be proud, but she had to be honest. That lying broke trust. Maggie turned to face them. She promised me she'd never lie to me again. The room was quiet. I guess, Maggie continued, that promise had an expiration date. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then showed Maggie the screen. A text from an unknown number. Mom, can we talk? I think there's been a misunderstanding about the necklace. Please call me. Love you. That's Jessica's new number, Rebecca said. She's spooked. Probably heard through the grapevine that you've been meeting with me. Do I respond? No. Let her sweat. Sunday she'll get all the conversation she can handle. Thomas read the text again. Love you. 2 words. Did she even know what they meant anymore? 4 days, he said. In 4 days, this is over. Maggie picked up her purse, tucked Bill's letter inside. 4 days until she confronted the daughter who'd betrayed her. 4 days until she honored her husband's final protection. 4 days until justice. Let's go home, Thomas, she said. And as they walked out of Rebecca Foster's office into the Savannah sunlight, Maggie felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Not happiness, not yet, but something close to strength. Saturday morning, Rebecca's investigator, a former FBI agent named Richard Bowen, delivered his report. Dr. Linda Mitchell had been easier to crack than expected. She's scared, Bowen said, dropping a thick folder on Rebecca's desk. Been suspended once already for fudging records. 1 more strike and she loses her license permanently. When I mentioned federal mail fraud charges, she practically begged to cooperate. Rebecca flipped through the file. Bank statements showing Jessica's $15,000 Venmo payment. Email chains. The fake psychological evaluation. Beautiful. Let's bring her in. They met at a neutral location, a conference room at the Savannah Marriott. Dr. Mitchell arrived looking like she hadn't slept in days. Mid-50s, expensive highlights gone brassy, her hands shaking as she set down her purse. "Mrs. Hayes," she began, "I want to—" "Save it!" Rebecca's voice was ice. "You wrote a psychiatric evaluation for a woman you never met. You diagnosed dementia based on hearsay from a source with obvious financial motivation. In what universe is that ethical?" Mitchell's face crumpled. "Jessica said her mother was struggling, that it was for her own good. You thought 15 grand was worth your medical license?" Thomas leaned forward. "Did you think at all about what happens to someone wrongly declared incompetent? How it destroys their autonomy, their dignity?" "I'm sorry." Mitchell's voice was barely a whisper. Maggie had been silent, just watching. Now she spoke, and her voice was steady. "Did Jessica tell you she was $340,000 in debt? That she planned to put me in the cheapest nursing home she could find so she could sell my house?" Mitchell looked up, shocked. "No. She said you were alone and overwhelmed. That family intervention was necessary. She lied, and you didn't bother to verify." I know. And I'm so sorry. I'll do whatever you need. I'll testify, I'll withdraw the evaluation, You'll do all of that," Rebecca said, sliding a cooperation agreement across the table. "And in exchange, we recommend reduced charges. 2 years probation, community service, permanent license suspension. You'll never practice again, but you'll stay out of prison. That's the deal. Take it or leave it." Mitchell took it, signed with shaking hands. As they left, Thomas muttered, "She got off easy." "Maybe," Maggie said, "but she has to live with what she did. Sometimes that's punishment enough." Sunday, 5:47 p.m., Maggie stood in her kitchen, staring at the pot roast in the oven. The smell was perfect. Garlic, rosemary, the way Bill had loved it. She'd also made cornbread, green beans, apple pie. A proper Sunday dinner. A last supper, really. Thomas came in, phone in hand. "Rebecca's outside with Officer Anderson. David Thompson from APS just pulled up. Doctor, Mitchell's in Rebecca's car, ready to come in when needed." "And Jessica?" "Texted 10 minutes ago. They're 5 minutes out." He touched her shoulder. "Mom, you sure about this?" Maggie thought about Bill, about 40 years of marriage, about the necklace she now wore again, warm against her skin. "I'm sure." The doorbell rang at exactly 6 p.m. Punctual. Jessica had always been punctual. Maggie opened the door. Jessica stood there with Brandon, holding a bouquet of supermarket flowers, daisies cheap and wilting slightly. She wore a sundress, her Hawaii tan still visible, her smile bright and false. "Mom, you look great." Jessica swept in for a hug. Maggie allowed it, feeling nothing. "Thanks so much for inviting us. We really need to clear the air about that silly necklace misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Maggie stepped back. "Yes, let's talk about that." Brandon followed Jessica in, looking nervous. He'd always been the nervous one. "Mrs. Hayes, house looks great." "Thank you, Brandon. Please sit. Dinner's almost ready." They settled in the dining room, the formal one, the one they only used for holidays. Maggie had set the table with her good china, cloth napkins, candles. If this was going to be a funeral, it would be a proper one. "So," Jessica began, accepting a glass of sweet tea, "about the necklace. I've been thinking, maybe you put it somewhere safe and forgot? It happens, Mom. No judgment. We all get forgetful sometimes." There it was, the gaslighting, right on cue. "I didn't forget," Maggie said calmly. "You sold it to Harold Peterson for $47,000. You used the money for your Hawaii trip." Jessica's smile flickered. "Mom, that's crazy. Why would I do that?" "Because you're $340,000 in debt. Because you plan to have me declared incompetent, sell my house, and put me in Pleasant Grove Nursing Home." Maggie's voice remained steady. "Because you've been planning this for 2 years. The color drained from Jessica's face. Brandon set down his tea with a shaking hand. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jessica said, but her voice was thin. "Don't you?" Maggie stood, walked to the living room, turned on the TV. The screen flickered to life. Security footage. Jessica and Brandon on the couch, September 2022. "We need a different approach, something that makes her want to leave, or makes her seem like she can't stay." Jessica shot to her feet. "Where did you get that? You can't record people without—" "It's my house," Maggie said quietly. "Your father installed cameras before he died. He knew, Jessica. He knew what you'd do. On screen, Jessica's voice continued. This house is worth $900,000. Easy. That's our way out. Turn it off, Jessica whispered. Maggie didn't. The video played, clip after clip. Phone calls with Dr. Mitchell. Conversations about nursing homes. Brandon meeting with the lawyer. By the third video, Jessica was crying. Mom, please, let me explain. Explain what? Thomas appeared from the kitchen where he'd been waiting. Explain how you were going to steal from our mother? Lock her up? Destroy everything Dad built? Thomas, Jessica's face crumpled. You don't understand. We were desperate, so you decided to victimize a widow? Thomas's voice was cold. Your own mother? I wasn't going to hurt her. You needed her house, her money, her life. Maggie walked to the window, pulled back the curtain. And you were willing to destroy her to get it. Outside, Rebecca's car sat in the driveway. Visible. Jessica saw it. Saw Officer Anderson in uniform getting out. Saw David Thompson with his APS badge. No. Jessica backed toward the door. No, this is a setup. Brandon, we need to leave. Brandon didn't move. He sat at the table, head in his hands. Brandon? Jessica's voice rose, panicked. Come on. The doorbell rang. Maggie opened it. Rebecca entered, followed by Officer Anderson, David Thompson, and finally Dr. Mitchell, looking like she wanted to disappear. What the hell is this? Jessica demanded. This, Rebecca said, opening her briefcase, is the end of your scheme. She laid out documents like playing cards, the security footage transcripts, bank records showing payments to Dr. Mitchell, the fraudulent psychiatric evaluation, email chains with the realtor about kickbacks. Jessica Reynolds, Brandon Reynolds, Officer Anderson stepped forward. I'm placing you under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, attempted theft, and forgery of legal documents. You can't do this, Jessica's voice cracked. Mom, please, I'm your daughter. I know. Maggie's voice was quiet, firm. And I gave you everything. But it was never enough, was it? Officer Anderson pulled out handcuffs. Please turn around. Wait. Brandon stood suddenly. Wait. I want to make a deal. Everyone froze. Brandon, shut up, Jessica started. No. Brandon's voice was stronger than Maggie had ever heard it. I'm not going down for this. This was your idea, Jessica. All of it. The cameras can prove it. Brandon pulled out his phone. I've got recordings too. Every conversation we had about this. Every plan. Every lie. He looked at Rebecca. I'll testify. Full cooperation. Just, please. I never wanted this. Jessica's face went from pale to crimson. You bastard. You spineless. Ma'am, that's enough. Officer Anderson turned Jessica around, cuffed her hands behind her back. You have the right to remain silent. As the Miranda rights were read, Jessica stared at her mother. The tears were real now. Not manipulative, just broken. Mom, she whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Maggie said nothing, just watched as her daughter, her baby girl, was led out in handcuffs, still crying. Brandon followed with a second officer, head down, defeated. The house fell silent. David Thompson from APS approached Maggie. Mrs. Hayes, I apologize. We were given false information. Your case file will be closed and expunged immediately. Thank you. He left. Then Dr. Mitchell, escorted by Rebecca, then Officer Anderson, until it was just Maggie, Thomas, and Rebecca in the dining room, the pot roast cooling on the table, untouched. It's done, Rebecca said gently. The DA will file formal charges tomorrow. With Brandon's testimony and the video evidence, this is airtight. Jessica's looking at 4 to 6 years. Maggie nodded. Couldn't speak. Thomas put his arm around her. You did the right thing, Mom. Then why? Maggie whispered. Does it feel so wrong? 3 months later, the trial was swift. Brandon had flipped completely, providing testimony that buried Jessica. Dr. Mitchell's cooperation sealed it. The verdicts: Jessica, 4 years in Georgia, Women's Correctional Facility, 5 years probation after release, $120,000 in restitution. Brandon, 3 years, plea deal for cooperation, 5 years probation, $80,000 in restitution. Dr. Mitchell, license permanently revoked, 2 years probation, 300 hours community service. Kevin Sullivan, the realtor. License revoked, $50,000 fine. Maggie attended every day of the trial. Sat in the gallery, watching her daughter try to explain the inexplicable. Jessica's lawyer argued desperation, financial pressure, poor judgment. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes, guilty on all counts. When the sentence came down, Jessica had looked back at Maggie one last time. Not angry, just empty. 6 months into Jessica's sentence, the letter arrived. Maggie sat on her porch, the same porch where this had all begun, holding the envelope. Georgia Women's Correctional Facility return address. Jessica's handwriting, shakier than before. She almost didn't open it, but she did. Dear Mom, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve either. They make us do therapy here. Mandatory. I fought it for 3 months before I finally talked. And Mom, the things that came out, I didn't even know I was carrying them. I was jealous of Thomas my whole life. Perfect Thomas, the doctor. Thomas who made you proud without even trying. And I tried so hard. Real estate, marriage, everything. But I kept failing. And every failure made me angrier. Dad knew. Of course he knew. He tried to talk to me 2 months before he died. Said, Jessica, you're chasing the wrong things. I told him he didn't understand. I was so arrogant. So stupid. I destroyed us for money I didn't even get to keep. For a Hawaii trip that meant nothing. For a house I never deserved. Brandon and I are divorced. He testified against me to save himself. I don't even blame him. I think about you every day. About the piano lessons you gave me for free when I was 7. About how you drove me to every single real estate exam, even when I kept failing. About Dad's funeral when you held me while I cried. I took that love and I weaponized it. I used it to hurt you. There's no coming back from that. But Mom, if you can find it in your heart, not now, maybe not for years, but someday, I'd like to try to be someone you could be proud of again. Not for you, for me. Because I need to learn how to be a person who deserves a mother like you. I love you. I'm sorry. Those words don't mean much anymore, but they're all I have. Jessica Maggie read it 3 times. Then she folded it carefully, placed it in the drawer of her nightstand, next to Bill's letter. She didn't respond. Not yet, but she didn't throw it away either. 2 years later, the William Hayes Music Scholarship Fund held its 2nd annual recital on a warm May evening. The community center was packed. Students, parents, donors, local press. Maggie sat in the front row, Thomas on one side with his wife Emily and the kids. On her other side, an empty chair. Lily Anderson, the fund's first recipient, now 14, performed Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Beautifully, perfectly, the way Bill would have loved. As the applause died down, Maggie felt her phone buzz. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations on the scholarship fund. Dad would be so proud. J. Maggie stared at the message. Jessica had been released 3 months ago. Early release for good behavior. She was living in Atlanta now, working as a receptionist, trying to rebuild. They hadn't spoken since the trial. Maggie's finger hovered over the delete button. Then she typed, "Thank you." Just 2 words. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. The response came immediately. "Can I call you next month?" No pressure, just to talk. Maggie thought about Bill's letter. Sometimes people choose who they're going to be, and we can't stop them. But people could also choose to change. Maybe, she typed. Maybe. We'll see. She put the phone away, turned her attention back to the recital, to the next student, to the music that filled the room like a prayer. The eternal knot rested against her collarbone, warm and familiar. Thomas leaned over. "You okay, Mom?" Maggie looked at her son, her good, steady son, then at her grandchildren, whispering and giggling in their seats, then at the stage where young musicians were getting chances they might not have had otherwise. "Yeah," she said, "I think I am." 3 years after that, Maggie was 70 years old, still teaching piano to 5 students every week, still running the scholarship fund that had grown to $600,000. Jessica came to visit once a month. They met at the same coffee shop, the one they used to go to when Jessica was in high school. They talked about safe things, weather, Jessica's job. She was an office manager now, stable, the scholarship students. They didn't talk about the past. Not yet. maybe not ever. But every month, Jessica handed Maggie an envelope. Inside, a check for $100, part of her restitution payments, and a letter listing one thing she was grateful for. Maggie kept every letter in a box in her closet. She hadn't forgiven Jessica, wasn't sure she ever fully could, but she was learning to let go of the anger, to make room for something else. Not love exactly, not trust, but possibility. On a Sunday evening, Maggie sat on her porch watching the sun set over Savannah. The Spanish moss swayed in the breeze. Neighbors walked dogs. Children played in the street. Her phone rang. Thomas. "Hey, Mom. Just checking in. You need anything?" "I'm fine, baby. Emily and the kids good?" "Sophia wants to know if she can come for piano lessons this summer." "Absolutely. Tell her I'm already preparing." They chatted for a few more minutes, then hung up. Maggie touched the necklace. Bill's necklace, her necklace, eternal and unbroken despite everything. She thought about the journey, the betrayal, the fight, the victory that felt more like survival, but also the scholarship students, Thomas's steadfast love, the slow, painful possibility of Jessica's redemption. Bill had protected her, even from the grave, but Maggie had saved herself. "We made it, Bill," she whispered to the evening air, to the ghost she still talked to. "Not the way we planned, but we made it." Inside the house, the Steinway waited, patient and knowing. Tomorrow she'd play again. Something beautiful, something that lasted. Tonight she just sat, breathing in the honeysuckle-scented air, feeling the weight of the eternal knot against her heart. Proof that some things, love, legacy, truth, really were forever.